Hey, Jarek here, and I have never played that, or any of the Red Faction games. I haven't had a reason, I haven't been opposed to it, I just have never gotten around to them. I've always had other games to play. But if you look in any of my comments on any video, Red Faction is one of the most heavily requested franchises on this channel, so I guess it's finally time. I'm going to cover all the Red Faction games, not one after another, I'm going to sprinkle them in. And the first one is a good place to start. So let's cover Red Faction 1, 21 years later. Before I even get started on this game, I have to talk about how you play it. There's quite a few different ways, but I think there's one definitively best way to play Red Faction 1. You could get a PS2 copy and play it on your old PS2, or you could emulate it on a PS2 emulator. You could even buy it on the PlayStation Store for the PS4. However, this is a game that also came out on PC, and it's still very easy to buy on Steam. Or GOG if you feel like it. With that said, the PC version has a ton of issues, so I would not recommend playing this raw. The footage you are seeing is with a community patch called Dash Faction. This effectively fixes a bunch of issues that can leave you soft-locked while you're playing the game, along with a ton of quality of life improvements. This patch will make it play nicer with bigger, more modern resolutions and at higher frame rates. There's a bunch of smaller options, like for example, the ability to increase the HUD so it looks better at a bigger resolution, because if you don't tick this text is just so small. Basically, this patch makes the PC version by far the best way to play this game in 2022. And if you're playing it on PC, as far as I'm concerned, this patch is mandatory. Thank God for PC Gaming Wiki doing all of my research for me. If you want to download this yourself, I'll put a link down below in the video information. It's just a simple exe file, it automatically updates, you don't need to do anything. Okay, with that out of the way, let's talk about this game, starting with the visuals. To be honest, the graphics are okay for 2001. There really isn't anything that stands out as glaringly bad or really good. Just for a baseline, here's some other games that came out that year: Alien vs Predator 2, Return to Castle Wolfenstein, Serious Sam First Encounter, and the big one, Halo. Now, it's not really fair to compare it to some of those games, especially Halo, because the Xbox was just a more powerful console than the PS2, but it's still going to be in your mind in 2001. And if that wasn't bad enough, the very game they were inspired by and at times blatantly tried to copy, Half-Life, got ported to the PS2 that year. Now you can see why when people talk about the best first-person shooters of all time, Red Faction is not usually what shows up on those lists. The main thing they tried to sell Red Faction on, the main thing that was supposed to make the game more advanced than the others, was its destructible environments. Yeah, these are pretty much a non-factor when it comes to playing this game. You're not really ever going to be destroying the environments. It is very scripted what you can and cannot destroy, and vast majority of the world cannot be changed at all. You're not going to have a Bad Company experience where by the end of the battlefield entire buildings have been taken down and there are craters in the ground everywhere. You can really only destroy things when the game makes it very clear that's what you need to destroy. Like, for example, if this door is locked, you need to blow up the wall and go around it. But trying to blow up any other wall won't do anything. And sometimes this even leads to confusion. For example, walking into this room. I clearly need to access that submarine. I can even climb up this crane to reach it. I can't really do anything once I'm up here, so that's kind of just redirection, I guess. The obvious thing is that you need to get into this room and push that button, but the door is locked and I can't jump in through the window. I'm apparently too fat. I can't reach the button from the outside. That guy in there won't push it for me. Shooting the button doesn't do anything, and throwing an explosive in there apparently also doesn't do anything. Even putting an explosive on the button didn't do anything. So I got stuck here for a while before looking at a walkthrough and then got very annoyed. I feel like I'm probably just gonna have to blow up the thing above the submarine and make it fall, but you have to put... What? I did that! What the fuck? I literally did that and it didn't function for me. What is this shit? I'm so upset. Because what you actually needed to do was make sure you put the explosive on this wall in particular, putting it on the button that's too far away from what is actually destructible. So yeah, you get what I mean here. This doesn't really change the game in any way whatsoever. It was probably a neat little gimmick on the PS2 back in the day, but nothing more than that. But I digress. For 2001, these graphics are fine. They're not going to blow your mind, but they're definitely not bad. They set a theme. And what really helps that atmosphere is the music. Because the music actually is really good. What's not quite as good is the story. Again, it's not bad, it's just very surface level. Pretty much everything you need to know is shown to you right from the opening cutscene. You work in a mine on Mars for a company named Altor. This company has given these people truly terrible working conditions. To make things even worse, there seems to be a plague killing off all the workers. Now, since you're on Mars, you can't just leave your job, you're kind of stuck there and really screwed over. So within the first 10 minutes of the game, the Red Faction uprising begins. And really, that is all you need to know. The story doesn't really go any deeper than that. Don't get me wrong, there are characters with voice acting and they will tell you what you should be doing on each level, but you're kind of just getting ferried to the next location to do the next objective. Antagonists aren't really introduced properly and they don't stick around for very long. And when they are introduced, they're usually introduced in horribly bad cutscenes.
Stop, don't shoot. I can help you.
You're Griffin.
Oh god, look at those eyes.
What do you mean they set this whole thing up?
No time to explain. Take me to Eos. I'll tell her everything I know.
Something that's a little unfortunate is that since you're working in a mine, you are technically a miner, and this leads to really amusing voice lines.
Try it, miner.
Make me use my
The
range
escaping
weapon.
miners came this way too.
Something about the words escaping miners makes me uncomfortable.
Better run, miner.
It's like the fact that no one is ever gonna think of like literal miners when they hear that word. Like if I hear the words "better run miner," my alarms are going off in my head.
Just you and me, miner.
That's the level of voice acting you should be expecting throughout the entire game. Even when someone dies, it's hard to even tell they're dying unless you're looking at them.
Stop them. Don't let Altor get away with it all.
That was him supposed to be dead? That was his I'm
I'd
dying
stay
voice
myself.
acting?
Yeah, again, the story is rather surface deep and you're not going to get attached to any of these characters. As for the combat loop, it's kind of just a linear shooter for the most part. It does have some things to break it up, but the main combat you're going to be doing is walking down corridors and shooting enemies. Lots and lots of military enemies. It doesn't have the biggest enemy variety. You'll come across a few mutants and even the occasional odd boss, but for the most part, it's these guys you're going to be shooting at. It's not terrible, I just wish there was a little more variety. The attempt at shaking the game up a little bit is what they give the player. For starters, these weapons are actually pretty awesome for 2001. Now, this was before the time of aim-down sights, so right-clicking doesn't scope in unless your gun has a scope on it. Instead, right-click is the split function. Guns vary from being pretty standard workhouse weapons, like for example the assault rifle. Left-click is just a burst fire mode, right-click is full auto. Nothing too crazy here. Same thing can be said when you basically get an upgraded version of this with a light machine gun. Left-click is full auto, right-click is full auto but slow, so it's a little more accurate at range. But then you get some truly odd, unique weapons like the SMG. At first all seems normal. This looks like an MP5K, it functions like one, it shoots SMG ammo, it's 9mm as far as I can tell. That is until you right-click and you notice the magwell has 2 magazines in it. Yeah, right-clicking turns this into an assault rifle and uses 5.56, the same ammo that your assault rifle in-game uses. This begs the question, why? It takes longer to do this, so you're probably never going to do that. You're just gonna pull out your assault rifle instead, which is also more accurate. It is a neat gun in concept though, I'll give them that. But then there comes the truly odd, unique weapons like the railgun. At first, it just seems like a standard railgun, already pretty awesome. But if you right-click, it can see people through walls and shoot people through walls. This is awesome. Yeah, this thing is very strong. It's going to save your ass at times. The only problem is that the enemies also can shoot you through walls and can also one-shot you, so be prepared to randomly die a lot.
Where the fuck did that come from? Holy shit, it just got deleted.
This looks like some kind of motor pool. Check around.
God damn it. I hate how they can just one-shot you out of nowhere. Fucking railguns, dude. Fucking god damn it. God damn it. Why are they able to one-shot you?
He's in the ventilation system. Flush him out.
Cool. They have the same fucking gun.
Thankfully on PC you can quick save, so it's not that big of a deal, but apparently the PS2 version has horrible autosaves. I cannot imagine playing this game on the PS2. So yeah, for 2001 these weapons are pretty downright cool. They have good animations for the time, they have nice sounds, they have good effects on target. Although I do wish there was some true ragdoll or a little more of an effect, maybe some jibbing or something, but it's good enough. The main problem you really start to run into with this game is the pacing. It's kind of all over the place. The first time you get the railgun is in this awesome high-octane level. You get your light machine gun and a railgun at the same time you find a new, heavier armored enemy. This level also doesn't want you to sit around for long, and you'll find yourself in this tram, shooting from tram to tram. This was the high point of the whole game for me, but there's also a lot of low points. There's a couple of times in this action first-person shooter where they decide to force stealth on you, because that's always fun. Thankfully, it's not the worst kind of forced stealth I've ever seen, but it's certainly not great. If an enemy spots you, it's not instant failure, you just are stuck with only a suppressed pistol and nothing else to defend yourself. So yeah, you can make this work, and you can just kind of go loud and shoot everyone and not care, but it's a lot more difficult, less fun, the pistol's not great, it's just annoying overall. There's a second time where they try to use forced stealth again, however this time you can just straight up ignore it. If you don't go into this other room and pick up this lab coat, you'll keep all your weapons and you can just go loud. I would highly advise you to do this because the next level will have you fighting a bunch of enemies in caves. And if you put away all your weapons, you don't have ammo anymore. This makes this section way harder. But if you don't go stealth, this section's actually pretty fun. You fight a lot of mutants down there. Another attempt they made at spicing up the gameplay and fixing their pacing is to give you vehicles. These are kind of hit and miss, but for the most part, pretty okay. Some of them I'm not a big fan of because they control a little janky, like say this APC. It has the controls where using the mouse to look around steers the vehicle, and I've never preferred this. I've always preferred the arrow keys to actually steer left and right, or well, WASD, not arrow keys. As a side tangent, that's just objectively better. Using WASD to actually steer the vehicle so the mouse is free to look around you. I don't want to steer the direction I'm shooting, I just want to look that way. Anyway, that's more of a minor inconvenience. It's just that the whole thing feels a little weird and feels like the whole APC kind of gets stuck on rocks and whatnot, so not the best, but not the worst. The submarine is fine, it's kind of right in the middle for me, but my favorite is this flying vehicle. This thing controls very intuitively, and it's just a lot of fun to use. It's nothing crazy or wild. Left click has a machine gun, right click fires rockets. I mean, that's pretty much it. But almost to prove my point about the weird pacing in this game, at the end of this section when you're in this vehicle, you're thrown into a boss fight. If you had little health when you got into that vehicle, you're just screwed over here. This boss, who was only introduced to you a few rooms before, so you don't really know who she is, starts the fight in a vehicle, and this part's really easy. Just note that if you have low health, stay close to the ground, otherwise you get yeeted out of your vehicle for no reason and die. This happens when you destroy your vehicle. You're forced into a hand-on-hand combat, or, well, gun-on-gun combat. Yeah, she's also very tanky and will immediately murder you, so that's kind of annoying. Thankfully, I could save scum here. Again, I can't imagine playing this with the terrible autosaves that it used to have on PS2. I actually cheesed this boss by just climbing into the rafters and she got stuck and didn't know what to do. After you defeat her, you go down an elevator, you turn off a bomb in the most annoying minigame ever, and then the game just abruptly ends. That's just the end of the game. Again, as a reminder, I don't know who this final boss is. She's introduced to me a few rooms before. So this is what I mean by the story is very surface level, the pacing's all over. But to really prove my point about the pacing, let's point to something that is blatantly ripped out of Half-Life.
You're just hiding in here, fan control, all right, yeah. Alternative way to defeat it. I just need to get it to follow me. What the Why was it there? How am I supposed to know?
There's a disposal pit at the lowest point of this level.
Okay.
Yeah, you can see where this is going. This big robot thing that you cannot destroy needs to be lured into a trap and then you kill it. It's Power Up all over again. Now, that wouldn't be a problem if they understood what made Power Up and Blast Pit so fun.
Shield your eyes, we have Half-Life Source. Yeah, so I'm gonna use some very old Half-Life Source footage from 2012 before they entirely broke Half-Life Source, purely because I'm too lazy to re-record 2 entire chapters of Half-Life 1. But again, this is from 2012 before Half-Life Source became entirely broken, so it'll do.
The chapter before Power Up is Blast Pit. You immediately are introduced to the giant roadblock. You're introduced to the solution with the big button right in front of you, and you are shown firsthand what happens if this thing attacks you. You just die. So fighting it is not an option. You then need to explore the environment, which slows the game down, come across a few enemies to shoot, which brings the pacing back up, push a few buttons, travel back up, and kill the enemy. After all stealthing around this enemy, after everything you did for the last 20-30 minutes or so, you get this incredibly satisfying big fireball of death. And then Power Up does the same thing, but with a twist. Now that roadblock is trying to actively kill you. So right away the game teaches you that the Gargantua is going to chase you. So again, you have to explore the environment, which slows things down, and then you have to fight some marines, which speeds things up. In Blast Pit, most of the combat encounters are aliens. In Power Up, most of your combat encounters are with the marines. You have pacing and variety. So you turn the power on, you come back up, you get the Gargantua to follow you, and then you shock it to death. Again, visually satisfying. First-person shooters seem to struggle with bosses quite a lot, and I've always had the opinion that this is the best way to do a boss in most first-person shooters. Some exceptions to be made, like say with Doom, it wouldn't really make a whole lot of sense. But you don't need to rewrite the entire structure of your game to make a good boss fight. In fact, don't do that, that's why most of them are bad. But if these chapters are so good, and people should take note of them, why is this so bad in this game? Well, it's not really bad, it's just kind of a toss-away level that you don't need to think anything of. You can beat it in 30 seconds. The moment you walk into this room, you're basically told exactly what to do.
There's a disposal pit at the lowest point of this level.
Okay.
Try to lure the bot out onto the pit's covering. Then open the doors from the control room.
In Half-Life, you are never told what to do. Half-Life respects the player a little more and allows them to explore the environment and figure things out. But more importantly, there's no pacing here. There's no other routes to go. There's no big way to get around this huge roadblock. It's just, look at this slow robot hovering towards you. All you have to do is get him to walk towards you and press a few buttons, and that's the whole chapter. It's like they thought the power-up was fun, but didn't really understand what made the chapter so memorable. Yeah, the payoff was good, but why was the payoff of killing the Gargantua so rewarding? And why is this not rewarding? It's not annoying, difficult, or bad. Again, it just kind of misses the point. So how do I feel about Red Faction 1? Well, I think it's actually a fascinating snapshot in time, 21 years later. Half-Life 1 only came out a few years before Red Faction did, and it sent waves through the market. Everything suddenly changed. Trends in video games shifted rapidly, especially at that time where the technology was moving forward so fast. You didn't tend to see slow, gradual changes from trend to trend. You would tend to see one really big game come out and then rapidly change everything after. Two immediate examples that come to mind, the one I'm talking about right now, Half-Life 1. Shooters went from being Doom and Quake to Half-Life. This is why I vehemently argue that Half-Life is not a boomer shooter. The gameplay is just too different. I feel like even if you give a new person Half-Life and Quake, they're going to be able to tell you which one is which. But then fast forward to 2007 when Call of Duty 4 came out, and you see another sudden massive shift to everything being modern military shooters, or as I like to call it, the dark ages of Spunk Gargle Wee Wee. Anyway, my main point here is that it's fascinating, because Red Faction was trying to learn from Half-Life 1, but this was still really relatively new. And in its defense, it's not like it's a Half-Life clone, it was just trying to borrow some things from Half-Life 1. It wasn't a terrible experience that I found frustrating, but it was also not a great experience, I would say, either. Even looking at it in the snapshot of time of 2001, I don't think it's one of the best shooters ever made. If we're putting Half-Life in S tier, I would put Red Faction somewhere A- or B+. It's fun and ultimately worth playing if you're interested in it at all, but just don't be expecting something revolutionary. And that should sum everything up. I stream this game over to my Twitch. If you subscribe to my Twitch, you get to see my videos at least 1 week ahead of time. That's twitch.tv/Jarek4GamingDragon. You can check the link in the bottom right. And for all of you over here on YouTube, I quite literally could not do what I do without you. Thank you for watching this video.